snow is a thing of the past, children won't know what sledding is. What did the activists say when the snow started piling up?
This is global warming, even though it's freezing.
Right, well, and that's why I don't like the phrase global warming. I like climate change.
Yeah, it's going to get hot, but you're also going to have snow in the summer in some places.
Every day, we are getting new evidence of the effects of man-made climate change. Today, the Northeast Plains and lower Midwest are digging out from another round of snow and freezing rain.
It's consistent with what you'd expect.
The message went from global warming causes less snow to global warming causes more snow.
So Boston, as of this point, is in its number 2 snowiest winter.
Is this all part of climate change?
I think it is.
More snow, less snow, forest fires increase, forest fires decrease, malaria increase, malaria decrease, more fog, less fog, winter's warmer, winter's colder. So no matter the outcome, they can claim they predicted it.
You all know what I think about the United Nations Conference on Climate Change in Paris. But if you missed that final point, check Facebook. I think it's a colossal waste of time. And the clock is ticking. It's been almost 5 days now, and there is still no solution to climate change. I sure hope they figure it out soon, though, because here in Southern California, we could sure use some rain. Anyway, this is President Obama's definition of leadership, leading on climate change, the greatest threat facing our nation, according to Obama's own claim. And I wish I could say I'm surprised that his leadership here, too, has gotten us nowhere. Joining me today to discuss his documentary is the publisher of ClimateDepot.com, producer of the documentary Climate Hustle, and former senior staff of U.S. Senate Environment and Public Works Committee, Marc Morano. Marc, welcome back.
Thank you, Liz. Happy to be here.
So the left claims climate change is responsible for ISIS. Not to sound too biased, but how nuts is that?
What they're saying is that because there was a drought in Syria, and people were, there was a lot of political stress as a result of that, ISIS grew out of that rubble. Now, what they're claiming is that every drought is man-made global warming. The fact of the matter is, in peer-reviewed journals, we're finding there's a declining trend or no trend on 60-year and longer timescales with drought. So droughts aren't getting worse, but they basically say any bad weather event is caused by global warming. So we had a drought in Syria, which helped create turmoil, which created ISIS. That's their claim. What they ignore is that the same in Syria in 1933, the government banned yo-yos because they thought that they caused drought. Now they want to ban our SUVs and coal plants because they think they cause drought, when the science behind it shows that it doesn't. And actually, peer-reviewed studies show that in cooler times, we have more political conflict and wars. In warmer times, we have more peace.
Right, and their premise is ridiculous to begin with. I mean, the correlation between climate to economic climate, maybe leading to a lack of opportunities. How in the world does the jump happen between that to sudden radicalization and murder of anyone who's not part of their radical Islamic group? That's mind-boggling to me. But we're now 5 days into the climate conference. No solutions yet. The only thing we've seen happen of significance is a giant potluck dinner. In all reality, what do you expect to come from this conference?
Well, they're going to have some kind of agreement at the end. And the agreement's going to be a bunch of pledges, a bunch of countries coming together. It's going to be countries from all over the world claiming that they can control the thermostat of the Earth 100 years from now by trying to keep it from rising no more than 2 degrees Celsius. This is the height of modern witchcraft. They're going to get together, have this agreement. Now, President Obama has bypassed Congress on EPA. He's now going to try to bypass the Senate on a ratification of a UN treaty, saying that we don't need the Senate. So it's very dangerous for American sovereignty and American economics and our energy independence, because we're going to be committing to limiting our energy choices. Our politicians will be making our energy choices in order till we can solve global warming. Very frightening.
Right. Now, this agreement, they basically agreed to agree on it by the end of 2015. What exactly is in this agreement? We know what the premise is, to control the temperature, but what are the provisions in it that would supposedly help this?
Well, each country gets together. Now, China, India, the United States, Russia, all the developing world, and they all make these pledges. And they're not going to be, I doubt they're going to be binding at this point because these treaties never are, but they're trying to make pledges that say we're going to reduce our energy, which will reduce our CO2 output by 2030, 2050, 2070. They'll have different time scales. And in order to get the developing world to sign on, the developing world, over 1.1 billion people don't have running water and electricity. Why would they limit their energy? In order to do that, they're going to have to end up, the developing world, the developed world like the US and Western Europe, is going to have to pledge $100 billion a year in a sort of form of climate aid or foreign aid to go to these governments in the third world to basically say, here's your money, so you'll limit your development. It's a perverse, in many ways, immoral treaty, but this is what they're going for. Paying a lot of money will be transferring. The United Nations is on record as stating they will redistribute wealth by climate policy. So they're itching to get their hands on what's going to amount to $1 trillion or more in climate aid and climate fund money that they get to disperse and redistribute.
And that could only have enormous implications on trade, on domestic and international trade, on business, on private citizens. It's nuts. But let's change topics for a moment. Let's talk about your new documentary. We saw a promo for it at the top of the segment. Can you tell us more about Climate Hustle?
Yes, this is a film that that we're actually getting early reviews back, that it's funny, hilarious, people are laughing. We're trying to take an entertaining, sarcastic look, but with dead serious science behind it. We focus on scientists who used to believe in man-made global warming and then have re-examined the evidence and are now skeptical. And they're politically left scientists, French socialists, scientists who voted for Al Gore and think he's a smart man, but then saw his film and were appalled at the way he presented science. Former UN scientists who've turned against the UN. So we go through that, and we go through a virtual A to Z of the scientific issues. We have a lot of fun going through the tipping points where we must act or else. And we go through and we demolish the 97% consensus that all scientists agree. We show that that was literally pulled from thin air, and the estimate crumbles when you touch it.
Okay, now if you had to distill it down into one lesson that you want people to walk away with from this film, what would it be?
We want them to walk away that they have not been told the truth by the media and by the environmentalists and by college professors and by their teachers. This movie will lay bare the idea that CO2 is not the controlling factor of our climate. There's literally hundreds of factors. And the idea that we can predict our climate and manage it by regulation, by UN treaties, by EPA climate regulations, is akin to witchcraft. That is the simple message. You cannot legislate weather. You can't vote yourself better weather. And that's what we're being told in Washington and in Paris right now. We are going to have a red carpet premiere of this film December 7th in Paris during the UN summit coming up on Monday.
And in all reality, because you do have to look at it from this angle as well, in all reality, what reaction do you expect from both sides of the aisles to your film?
Well, we've already getting reaction. A top UN scientist has already denounced the film as propaganda without even having seen it. Now, I do interview this scientist in the film. We expect a huge international reaction. We're already getting it. Our opening night premiere in Paris has a capacity of several hundred seats, and they're already overbooked. We've already filled it up within a couple days of the announcement. So there's a lot of interest. We're going to have a red carpet media event, and we're already getting major international media lining up to do interviews.
All right, now you're going to the conference in Paris tomorrow. Besides this premiere, what else do you plan to do while you're there?
Yes. Well, I go to every one of these UN conferences. Even when I worked in the United States Senate, I went to the ones in Indonesia and Bali and Africa and South America, all over Europe and Cancun. And one thing the United Nations knows how to do is throw a party. And these are lavish spectacles. But I'm going to be going as a sort of truth squad. I'll be reporting back on what the UN is up to. They always try to have different, they call them environmental justice courts, reparations for climate change, a whole series of wacky ideas. We'll be there reporting on that to let the public and Americans back home know exactly what the United Nations is up to. Before the final agreement probably won't be till another week or so from now.
Well, it sounds like a good time, and I wish you best of luck with your premiere. I'm looking forward to seeing the film myself when it becomes available here in the United States, and I believe that is next year, correct?
Yes, it'll be January. We're looking for a theatrical release, so yes.
Well, I'm looking forward to that, and Marc, thanks for coming on the show tonight.